On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina. All right, everybody, I'm here with James McCallie of the Tampa Bay Rays organization. James, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate your time. Tell the listeners about yourself, if you would, please.
Yes, so my name's James McCallie. I graduated from the University of Alabama at Birmingham with a bachelor's in exercise science. Got my start really in background in this while I was there. I had a work study for UAB's football team at the sports medicine department. And it kind of was at a practice one day and saw what was, called Muscle Beach, where all the injured guys lifting. I was like, well, what's going on over there? And started talking to the strength coach and got involved that way. And then took a class. We had a class on the CSCS course at school, and our professor, who was a nationals champion weightlifter, got to know him, and he really kind of got my start being my mentor and got me involved in the profession that way.
Okay, and so how about your journey to professional baseball? Is there any stops in between school and with the Rays, or are you just right to the Rays from school?
Now, I got kind of blessed with that. My mentor, who at the time was teaching me everything in college, he had worked with the White Sox back in the 90s and was good friends with Truncal, who was our coordinator at the time. And really, as soon as I graduated, was fortunate enough to get a job with the Rays right after graduating.
Okay, so how long have you been with the Rays then?
Since 2012.
2012 to now with the Rays. Okay, awesome, man. Yeah, not everybody is so lucky to get in. So when you get a chance like that, that's really, really good. But you had the right mentors, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of hear your best professional baseball story that you have, whether it's something that got lost in translation early on in your career or a success story that you've seen. Just what's your favorite memory from professional baseball?
Really, it sounds kind of bland, but really just how well I was treated right out of the gate from the staff with the Rays from my first day. I remember I came in kind of 2 weeks into spring training that year and got to meet everyone, and everybody was very nice. Big league players, coaching staff, the whole thing, and that went a long way with me. I really appreciated that and how they treated me. So.
Yeah, I was in the same boat my first season. I started in the middle of spring training, and it's so overwhelming just getting to know everybody and then know a new system and get to know baseball as a whole, and just having people taking you in and being accepting of you really, really does help.
It does. It goes a long way.
And then, of course, you get to know all those guys, and 2 weeks later they leave for their seasons, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So you were Strength Coach of the Year this year, so first and foremost, congrats on that. I've said it many, many times, but it's a peer-voted award, and so it goes a long way that your peers think you're doing something right. And so I want to know what it is that you are doing that makes you so successful.
Really, the biggest thing I could really think of is I try to learn from everybody I meet. Everybody in the league, this year, just talking to them, kind of their ideas, their personal philosophies, just kind of taking things in. And it really just comes from, being humble, kind of, trying to not have an ego as much as possible. And really, there's something you can learn from everybody, whether it's another strength coach, position coach, trainer, or just something you see individualized, whether it's, watching how just any kind of successful coach has became the way they are, just any kind of technique they use, philosophies and backgrounds.
Yeah, for sure, man. I always enjoy talking with other coaches that come over and just hearing maybe what they're doing or what the organization is doing as a whole. And you don't have to necessarily agree with everything they say, but it's good to kind of take in other thoughts from other people and just see what they've been doing.
It is, and then what works for you might not work for them, but it might. So it's it really helps, talking to people and seeing what they do, how they make things work, especially the league I was in the Midwest League. In Bowling Green, where we're at, our shortest travel is 4.5 hours. So there's a lot of rolling in at 7:30 in the morning, playing that day game the next day. Hopefully you can lift the third day. So it comes from a lot of talking to people and seeing how they do things and to see if it can be helpful, because some things are.
Yeah, that helped me. Same with me, my first year in AAA this year, and just adjusting to flying and like day of travel and just how other guys were working around that in the league definitely helped me as well. So like you said, there's something you can take from everybody for sure.
Right.
So what do you think makes a strength and conditioning coach successful? Maybe just in general, and then more specifically in pro ball. Are there any tricks of the trade that you know that make people successful?
I think the biggest thing that makes you successful is getting players to buy in, especially in the professional level. Lots of guys have different kind of backgrounds, whether you're dealing with someone who's never been in a weight room before or someone who has somewhat of an idea from college. And then just, with the schedule and all the stuff that's thrown at them, they have a lot going on. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get players to want to even work out. So really to get them to buy into what you're trying to sell them is the biggest part of what would make someone successful.
I agree 100%, man. It's like when you talk to people that don't know the baseball schedule, and then you tell them they get to the stadium at noon, and then they have early hitting and early defense and batting practice and infield, outfield, and then they're playing a game, and people are like, they still have to lift too? And you're like, yeah, that's their everyday schedule, and they still lift 2 to 3 times a week, and they still come in and do, correctives or mobility or activation or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot of other stuff than just show up and play the game. And being able to get guys to buy in and actually want to come in and lift, I think is a sign of success for sure.
It is, and when you get just maybe 30 to 45 minutes a day with certain groups, it gets difficult. It does. And the other thing I really think, especially in baseball, is really to be able to relate to them is a big buy-in. To let them know something about the sport, or if you can play catch with someone, they have a different view of non-uniform coaches, and if you're just kind of a one-lane kind of guy, if you just know your thing. So that goes a long way. And, really, a lot of my time, especially, and probably everywhere, is you spend more time with the pitchers than you do anybody. And to really have a good relationship with a pitching coach can take you a long way.
Yeah, I agree, man. I honestly fell in love with just working with the bullpen this year. They were just, their own separate entity, and you're around them so much between conditioning, and then you're out for throwing program and stretch and the weight room and everything. And our pitching coach is my workout partner. And I mean, part of it is he's as crazy as I am in the weight room, and part of it is that relationship aspect is so important to both of us, that we're constantly communicating. We're at the ballpark early together every day, just, hey, lifting. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, okay. And then I help him with a lift thing, and then he helps me talk to the pitchers, and it's a good relationship to have for sure. I agree 100%.
It is. And it's one of those things where the relationship I had with our pitching coach this year, we'd throw the football together every day before the day would start. And it really helped me as far as a lot of guys. Everybody has different needs, but to talk to someone, to talk to him about what he thinks. We had a couple of guys who they didn't load their glutes very well. They weren't loading their hips a lot in pitching, which helped me translate over into the weight room. And when there's certain things that they can see that we don't necessarily see.
I agree 100%, man. That's their lane. We got our lane, but you can kind of merge the two, and that's a perfect example of it. Hey, this guy's not loading his hips, his glutes well. Can you help him? Oh, yeah, of course. Now that I know what you're looking for, I can help him, no problem.
Right.
So what do you believe in within strength and conditioning that others think you are crazy for believing?
Probably the biggest thing, and I know it's still not for everyone, but I am still a big fan of Olympic lifts, the variations of it. Like I said, it's not for everybody. And when I say Olympic lifts, it's not necessarily a full-on clean and jerk. It can be variations, pulls, using overhead squats for mobility. I'm a big fan of Olympic lifts.
Yeah, I saw just yesterday, I was reading something on social media, of course, and there's always the argument of should you or shouldn't you, and somebody said there's no need for Olympic lifts for baseball players when you can do jump training, and somebody's like, well, why not just do high pull variations? You don't have to do the full catch. Like, if that's your argument of the catch is putting your wrist and your elbow at risk, why not just do high pulls? Because you can load them a little bit more. And okay, that makes sense. So there's definitely that gray area, and I don't think it's an all or nothing thing. And I think if you have a reason for doing it and it's justifiable and you're not putting players at risk, then go for it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, I agree 100%.
So do you have advice for others in the field, maybe young coaches looking to get in, or even older coaches that have been around for a while? Just any advice you want to pass on?
The biggest thing for me, talked about earlier, I had a mentor. I really think that's a big thing to get involved with. Our profession is very broad. It covers, anything from Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, track and field. It's a lot of things combined. And I think probably my biggest advice is for anyone is find someone who's a specialist in anything like that and just spend time with them. Get involved. The biggest learning lesson for me was when I was in college getting involved in Olympic weightlifting was I did it for football in high school and thought you kind of had an idea what it was about, but until spending time with someone who has spent 20 years in that, do you really learn the ins and outs, the mechanics, the loading, periodization, how it really works unless you spend time with someone like that.
Yeah, my grad school lifting partners, one was in strongman, one was in powerlifting, and one was Olympic lifting. So I had any questions I just go over and, talk to those guys. And I'm not like a weak person by any means, but they were all just light years stronger than me. And I'm like, all right, I just want to spend time with you guys and learn what you're doing because I need to do it.
Right. And sometimes it's something as simple as technique that they know that, no one knows, reading bench press things. And, I was reading something the other day online from Matt Winning about bench pressing and how to, act like you're pulling the bar apart to activate your lats. And it's those people know things more than just squatting, just, hinge, just press. It's different levels of things that they know from spending years in that sport.
Yeah, I made my wife watch West Side vs. the World with me last night. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but like prime example of just watching some of the things they do and just hearing those stories and the techniques they're using and the programming they're using. It just goes a little bit more in depth than just reading the book. You're actually watching them live it out, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like you can read a concept, but being able to see it or hear it from that person firsthand, I think are two different things.
It is. It goes a long way, and it's just more detailed, and like you said, they lived it.
Mm-hmm. So kind of along those lines a little bit, where do you go for continuing ed? Are there any books you'd recommend, seminars you're listening to, any podcasts you're listening to, any seminars to check out?
Actually, this kind of bring up West Side versus the World. Actually, have currently been reading the West Side Book of Methods. That's been really good. I've also read The Tier System from Joe Ken. Has been really good. I just finished reading that one up. As far as seminars, the best thing that I can think of too for seminars is get involved in something that teaches you more about the sport you're in. Anything kind of the baseball seminar. I know there's one here. I'm in Nashville. There's one coming up in December. Just to learn just more about the movements and stuff you deal with and demands on the field for the guys that you have.
Yeah, it's kind of getting into that a little bit. Like we talked about, sharing lanes with the pitching coach or whatever. Like the more you can understand the game, the better it is. You don't necessarily have to take the game and tell the pitching coach or the hitting coach what to do. But if they come to you with something and you understand the basics of the game, I think it helps a lot with that relationship and your relationship with players.
It does.
So I know you got a newborn at home, and I'm sure you need to spend some time. But if you have a couple minutes, can we do a lightning round? Are you free for that?
Sure.
All right. So first question: biggest influence in the field of strength and conditioning? Who is it?
I'd probably have to say it would be Louis Simmons.
That's a really, really good one too. One piece of equipment to train with. What would you choose?
Barbell.
For sure. Biggest accomplishment professionally and or personally?
I'd have to say winning the Strength Coach of the Year this year.
And personally, probably having your little guy at home now, right? Any career other than strength and conditioning, what would you choose?
That's a good question. If I wasn't in this, I'd probably have said be a teacher. I explored going down that route before, and just like I said, spending time around the football team and stuff, seeing what that did kind of drew me away from that. So I guess probably be a teacher.
That's a good one. I wanted to be a math teacher and a baseball coach in high school. So it's just kind of in our blood, man, like teaching and just educating and being around and helping people. It's all the same, just different job title.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. And like I said, I want to let you get going. Where can the listeners get in contact with you? Social media, or is there a better place to go?
Social media, Instagram is at James_McCallie, and Twitter's at James McCallie, one word.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Say by email, if anybody wants to email, is the letter J McCallie at raisebaseball.com.
Perfect. I appreciate your time, man. And like I said, it means a lot to take time from your newborn to talk some shop with me, and we'll be catching up soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, that concludes this episode with James. I hope you enjoyed this one. Like I said in the episode, he's got a little one at home, and so for him to take time away from his family to talk some shop with me really means a lot to me. 3 things that I took from James in this episode: learn from everybody you meet, find specialists and spend time with them, and learn more about the sport you're in. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.